Who are the best trade chips at Chaim Bloom's disposal outside of Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, and Sonny Gray? Fans may not want to hear the answers that we have for you today on Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafron, a former national radio sports anchor, born and raised in St. Louis and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving you all the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app, so download the app today. On today's episode, we're going to be talking trade chips. Yeah, trade chips. We're going to take a glance at the MLB playoffs. All four division series are in action on Wednesday. 3 of them could end today, so things are getting exciting in the baseball playoffs. Sadly, our Cardinals are not involved, but they hope to be at some point in the next couple of seasons. And to get there, they're going to have to make some moves. There's going to have to be some trades made. And I want to talk about some guys outside of the 3 main guys that people are going to be talking about the entire offseason. Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, and Wilson Contreras. We did a hypothetical trade in yesterday's episode with the Mets that had to do with Wilson Contreras and Mark Vientos. So if you didn't see that episode or you didn't hear it, make sure you go back and check it out. Again, hypothetical. Not saying it's something that has to happen, and none of these trades have to happen. But you got to think about everything when it comes to deciding on how this upcoming 2026 season is going to look for the Cardinals. One thing we don't have a clear picture on is what the payroll is going to look like yet. Remember at the introductory press conference for Chaim Bloom taking over for John Mozeliak, they're like, well, I don't think we've even discussed payroll yet, which is a little odd, considering that's kind of a big deal, whether or not you're going to spend more money than you did this past year, whether you're going to cut what your payroll was from last year. Where do you want to be? We don't really have an answer for that just yet. What is clear is that the team does want to invest in their player development and go with younger players during this particular phase of this rebuild that the Cardinals are going through. I know one thing that rubs fans the wrong way is that it feels like winning will end up taking a back seat to rebuilding. And as much as Chaim says that it won't, that's not the idea here. Doesn't it kind of have to? Doesn't it kind of have to take a back seat? You know, if you're going to go younger and go with unproven players at the major league level, there's certainly a risk that they're not going to play that well and they won't produce. You know, there's no guarantees that any of these guys that have been good in the minors are going to be good when they get to the major leagues, which in turn means you're going to lose more games than you will. Now, there's always the chance that these guys blossom at the major league level and play well enough for you to win more games than you expected. But when you go younger, that's the risk that you're going to take. You're unproven. You don't know what these guys are going to do for you. So how much better, think about it. How much better would the 2025 team if just a couple of guys had been better than they were? Like if Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker and Victor Scott had all played at higher levels than what we got, even average levels, how much better would this team, would they have made the wild card? It would have made a massive difference in my opinion, but they didn't. Walker struggled with injuries and production. Gorman had brief moments of positivity, but finished with an OPS plus of 88. Was second on the team in strikeouts, despite only getting 400 plate appearances. And Victor Scott, although great defensively, and on the base pass, obviously, the one real stolen base threat that they got, that at just 216, OPS plus of 72. Their combined WAR with Walker, Gorman, and Victor Scott was 0.8. That's all they got out of them. That's awful. Fermin had 0.8 WAR by himself. No shade against Jose Fermin. I'm just saying, and those are 3 guys that you expected a whole lot more from, and it did not happen, and the team suffered for it, which is one of the reasons why you want to keep some veterans around. You can't just empty the cupboard and trade all of them away. You have to have some stability if you're not going to tank which is something the Cardinals, at least from what we've heard, are not going to do and are not willing to do. We've heard Chaim Bloom already discuss at length the futures of those 3 higher-priced veterans. Sat down with MLB.com's John Denton recently and said this about Nolan Arenado, that, obviously discussions are ongoing, but he says, I think we all recognize that just where he's at and where we're at, that there may be a better fit somewhere else. So we are, along with him, going to explore that. It is something that I think we're on the same page as to, hey, this makes sense to look at. I just don't see a release as something that's smart for us to do. And he's talking about, releasing Nolan Arenado, which we heard that they're not going to do. So if we're unable to find that fit elsewhere, then we'd be happy to have him back and we wouldn't release him. On Sonny Gray, Chaim said, with Sonny, the situation is a little bit different in that we do have a clear fit for him here, and he's enjoyed playing here. He said very complimentary things to me about his time with the organization. I shared with him where we're headed, and I think he would be perfectly happy and a perfectly good teammate and contributor if he's here. But, we're going to see what's out there and see if there's something that could make sense for us that furthers our goals and that he also wants to do. And then as far as Wilson Contreras goes, we know that he's made it known that he'd prefer to stay. He wants to be a part of things moving forward, but, he'd also be willing to listen if something were brought to his attention and they were like, all right, this is a possibility. Would you be interested? So he wants to stay in the loop about that, but prefers to be in St. Louis. But outside of those 3, who else might be some guys that could be used to acquire more talent for the organization? And they're not names that you look at and you go, oh, I want to get rid of them. Perfect. Get them out of here. They're not. These are guys that you like and that I like and that we like. And I think the obvious place to start is the one that fans are going to hate the most, and that would be Brendan Donovan. If you're building a championship, a championship caliber team, having someone like Brendan Donovan is usually a big part of it. Someone who is super versatile, great contact skills, gets on base a lot, smart player, great locker room guy. We know he can handle himself defensively at almost any position. And I know you're saying, well, then why the hell are the Cardinals trying to trade him? Well, this is why teams that aren't the Cardinals would be willing to part with a lot of good prospects or perhaps even major league ready talent to go get them. Teams that feel like they're one piece away. And Brendan Donovan has still got 2 years of control remaining, so his trade value is likely at its peak right now. As a fan, I do not want to trade Brendan Donovan. I don't. In fact, we've been saying for a couple seasons now, you should have extended him by now. Seems like the perfect guy that you'd want to keep around with someone like Wilson Contreras during this rebuild. If you're going to keep some veterans, I like those 2 guys. I have no problems with them being here. But then there's the business side of me. There's corporate JD, if you will. You see what he might cost here in the future when he gets his payday. You've got a J.J. Weatherholt coming up. You've got a Thomas Ajayci and a Mason Wynn and an Owen Gorman already on the infield. I can certainly see why you would listen to offers. Again, and I'm going to reiterate this over and over because people misconstrue these kinds of episodes as guys that I want to get rid of Brendan Donovan. That is not the case. I'm just giving you a reason why they would listen on offers. You do not have to trade any of these guys I'm going to bring up today. But he shouldn't be untouchable. And if someone throws a bunch of solid prospects at you and gives you a massive offer and says, do we need Brendan Donovan? And we're willing to part with, say, 3 top-tier prospects. And then I'm not saying they all have to be top 100, don't get me wrong, but guys that, because you're looking to replenish, like, your pitching in the organization. And if you can get, like, 3 arms for Brendan Donovan and they're guys you like, Chaim Bloom's got to listen. You can't just not listen for stuff like that. So he would be the guy that I think would pull the best return value. But obviously he's a guy that we all love. So nobody wants to get rid of Brendan Donovan, but you got to understand the business side of it all. Now, the next guy on my list is another player that he's become a staple for this team and is a part of one of the strongest aspects of this team. So we'll discuss who he is next coming up on Locked On Cardinals. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers with FanDuel can bet just $5, $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And it doesn't have to be a difficult bet. You know, you can pick something like pick an NFL team that stinks and then pick a team that's good that they're playing against somebody who stinks and go with it. Just go with it. Like I had the Lions beating the Bengals this past week. I thought that was an easy bet, and it ended up being an easy bet. You can do that, and then you'll hit on those bonus bets. And I love how FanDuel is going to give you so many different ways to play. You can build parlays. You can do the player props, which is like my favorite thing to do. I like doing the player props. I'm a fantasy football guy, so it makes a lot of sense for me. You can also follow the live lines during games and bet then. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel is going to make watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thanks for making Locked on Cardinals your first listen every day. If you enjoy daily Cardinals content, you can follow the podcast on X at @LO_Cardinals. We're also on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked on Cardinals as well. Now, I'm going to take you back in our little time machine for just a moment. For just a moment, because when the Cardinals traded Edmundo Sosa, which some people might forget the dude was even on the team, when they traded him to the Phillies back on July 30th of 2022, nobody really batted an eye. You know, Sosa was this solid bench guy, great glove, good speed, hitter, but he was out of minor league options at the time, and the infield was very full at the time. You had Tommy Edman, and you had Nolan Arenado, and Brendan Donovan, and Nolan Gorman was a big-time prospect coming up through your system. You had Paul DeYoung still on the roster at this point. You know, this is 2022 when, you know, they were making the playoffs, and they were really freaking good. So instead of holding on to Sosa, they flipped him for a left-handed reliever who at the time had a 7.89 ERA in 25 appearances at the major league level over 3 seasons. Again, at the time, nobody batted an eye. Everybody was like, it's fine. But it didn't really seem like it was such a great move because you're like, ew, 7.89. Who's this disaster that Mo just got? And it ended up becoming one of the better trades that John Mozeliak made in his final years. There's not a lot of great ones. People point it out all the time, but this was a good one because that left-hander's name was JoJo Romero. Now, Romero is now 29 years old. Coming off his best year in the major leagues at a 1.7 WAR, 2.07 ERA. He won 4 games. He had 8 saves, basically took over that closer role when Ryan Helsley was traded to the Mets. He also threw a career high in innings. Also had a career high in strikeouts in a season. His ERA plus was 200. Again, fans are going, well, why the hell would we want to move this guy? What are we doing? Again, it comes down to trade value. Trade value. Romero's value will likely never be higher than what it is right now. And if the Cardinals were in a window to win now, he'd be one of the last guys you'd move. But because they're not in that particular spot, you got to be willing to listen and see what other people will offer you in return for his services. You got to kick the tires on these things. What could you get in return for what is a valuable piece like him? A left-handed reliever with fantastic numbers is not very expensive, at least for one more year. Got one more year of control left. Will you a free agent in 2027? Now, will JoJo Romero be better in 2026 and command more at the trade deadline if you decide to hang on to him? And then if the Cardinals fall out of contention again, they can flip him at the deadline. Maybe. But if you recall, we had a similar situation this past offseason where you had Ryan Helsley and you had Eric Fetty. And the thought was that last offseason, those guys were going to get traded. And then they weren't. And the Cardinals brought him back. They were hoping that their value would increase, that they would have good seasons, and they'd be worth even more. And that didn't happen. They still got some prospects back for Helsley, but his value had taken a significant hit because he just was not the same guy he was the previous year, where he was the NL reliever of the year. And Fetty was a complete disaster. He imploded and was DFA'd in July. He's now on the bench with the Milwaukee Brewers, getting ready to move on in the playoffs. Funny how the things work out, right? But we wish him the best. It wasn't like Eric Fetty was some bad guy. It just didn't work out. He just was not very good. So that's the reasons why JoJo Romero be somebody that you should be listening on. Again, don't have to trade him, but you need to listen just in case somebody decides that, oh boy, I need that lefty. We need that guy. He would be huge in our bullpen. Somebody like the Dodgers, who didn't have a lot of luck in their bullpen this year. Would they be willing to give you something sexy in return for JoJo? I don't know. You have to wait till after the playoffs, find out when they come calling, but we'll see. Another name that might send a bit of a shudder through some Cardinal fans, like, oh, Alec Burleson is a guy that I think you got to listen to. But here's the one thing: is like, fans are going to say, wait, hold on a second. Why would you trade Alec Burleson? He's not old. He's not expensive. He's become a really good hitter the last 2 years. Very, very consistent. Doesn't struggle quite as much against lefties like he used to, although he's not nearly as good against them. Why would the Cardinals want to move this guy? Well, it's because of those exact reasons I just listed is why other teams would love to have him on their roster. Other teams might be interested in acquiring him because of all of those things. Plus, he's under control for 3 more seasons before he hits free agency at age 30 in 2029. Now, remember, Alec Burleson, we're not talking about a guy that's, 22, 23 years old coming up. He was an older guy coming out of college, and, he's, in his late 30s now. I guess late is stretching it a little bit, but he'll be age 30 in 2029 when he becomes free agent. And you got to ask yourself, here's what you got to ask yourself, because we like Burley. We love biscuits, right? Good hitter. But is this the best Alec Burleson will ever be? Is he going to get better than what he is now? Some people would argue no, that he's peaking right now. This is the best you're going to get. He's never going to be a full-blown 30 home run type of guy. He's a line drive hitter. Solid, but this could be it. This might be where the peak of his powers is. And if so, is that something that you want to use as a building block moving forward? Or you have guys that you think can be just as good for this team and flip Alec Burleson for prospects? Now, he's not much of an outfielder. We know that. He gives great effort. He does. But he's not a great outfielder. He should be a first baseman and a DH guy. And if Wilson wasn't here, he'd probably be their full-time guy at first base in 2026. I'm still not sold that Ivan Herrera is going to make it as a catcher. There's nothing about anything I've seen from Ivan Herrera as a catcher that makes me say, we can do this. I don't see it. And I think he'd be better off as a first baseman. Do the Wilson Contreras thing early in his career and make him your first baseman. I think that'd be a perfect spot for him. And if I had to keep one or the other between Ivan Herrera and Alec Burleson playing first base for me, I'm probably going to keep Herrera. I feel like the upside is greater. Let me reiterate again, for those just joining us, you do not have to trade these people. This is just discussion. We're creating conversation. It's the off season. Just stuff to think about. So don't get your panties all in a bunch and be like, oh, you want to trade all these guys? So you're a problem too. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just giving you ideas of things that could happen to try to improve what the Cardinals are trying to do. Obviously, moving on from Nolan Gorman to Jordan Walker is something that could be on the table as well, but you're selling very, very low on those guys. And these are guys that not that long ago had, skyscraper-like ceilings that you thought were going to be pillars of your offense moving forward. Hasn't happened yet, obviously. I'm still hesitant to give up on them just yet, but a lot of fans have seen enough and would rather us move on. They don't want to get stuck in another situation like a Dylan Carlson where you hang on too long and then nobody wants them and you don't get anything. You get, bupkis in return like the Cardinals did for Dylan Carlson when they moved him to Tampa Bay. I believe that they're going to give them another year, but If you ended up trading one, I guess I would think Gorman would make the most sense just because of the crowd you have among your infielders already. Depending on how they feel about Thomas Saggese, you could see an infield with Saggese, Mason Wynn, and J.J. Weatherholt at some point in 2026 as your starters. Heim spoke about both of Gorman and Walker with Denton as well, saying this about Jordan Walker, who is the guy that I'm, most concerned about. The offseason is going to be the real test of trying to really cement the adjustments and have them be second nature. I don't know that the comfort level was ever fully there in 2025. I do think with this type of talent, this type of player, we are eventually going to see those results at the big league level for his sake. For our sake as an organization, we need that to happen soon. Then on Gorman, he says he's shown it at this level. He showed flashes this year, but he just hasn't been able to stay there consistently. For him, coming into the offseason with a consistent and clear idea of who he wants to be and something that he believes in enough that it can withstand the ups and downs of the season and be something he's willing to stick with, and he doesn't end up searching, that'll be really important for him. Does that sound like somebody that is actively shopping those guys and is like trying to get rid of them? No, it sounds like, they're trying to move guys like Arenado out of the way so Gorman can have a full year of being a full-time player. Because obviously Arenado being a third affected what happened in Nolan Gorman this year. It will affect him moving forward if they're unable to move Nolan Arenado. Walker, in my opinion, just needs to stay healthy and produce, plain and simple. He's got to learn to stay off the outside pitches that they get him fishing on all the time. He needs to learn to take the ball the other way, and he's just got to figure it out. You just got to figure it out. But what are your thoughts on possibly moving on from guys like Donovan, Romero, and Burleson? Donnie clearly would hurt the most. People will not like that. But would you do it if you got the right kind of return back? If you ended up getting, say, a top 100 pitching prospect and a couple other good arms, would you do it? Let me know in the comment section below. Of course, you can hit me up on X as well. Let's talk some playoffs next for the final segment. The Yankees live to fight another day, and a former Cardinal lays an egg in his start on Tuesday. This is Locked on Cardinals. Hey, guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. No shame there. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, something different, it's time to meet Rougiette Go Long. Now, that's exactly where Rougiette Go Long comes in, is when, the normal stuff is not working for you, because this is not just another ED pill. It's a total game changer, and it's going to help you with your confidence. Go Long combines two doctor-trusted medications and puts it in one dual-action formula, so you can go the distance. And these effects can last up to 36 hours, which means when the time is right, you'll have confidence all day, all night, and even a little something extra for the next day if you need it. Now, the process is very, very simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor. And it's 100% online, by the way. You don't have to do any face-to-face meetings or anything like that to make you feel uncomfortable. And if you're prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. Nobody else will know what it is but you. So if you're ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom, head to Rougiette, that's RUGIET.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's Rougiette.com, RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB, and make sure to use our code. That way they know we sent you. Get back on the field with confidence at Rougiette.com. Thank you for making Locked on Cardinals your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked on MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. You'll get local analysis, but on a national scale. And you can find MLB Game Night on the Locked on MLB YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. Jack Flaherty was someone the Cardinals always had high hopes for. You had high hopes for him. So did I. We thought he was going to be the ace of this staff for many, many years moving forward. Injuries derailed his future with this team. Last year, he was able to resurrect things with the Tigers and then won himself a ring with the Dodgers. All of a sudden, life is good for Jack Flaherty. Ended up going back to Detroit. Did not get the offers that I think he was hoping for. Did not have a great postseason. And ended up going back to Detroit. Why not? Everything worked out well there, right? Things did not go so well here in 2025. He struggled with an 8-15 record, 4.64 ERA. Those 15 losses led the league, by the way. Took the mound on Tuesday against the Mariners with the series tied at 1 game apiece. It did not go well for him in this one either. Lasted just 3 1/3 innings. He strikes out 6, but he allows 4 runs, 3 of them earned on 4 hits, 1 home run. He walks 3. Not good. Not good for Captain Jack. The Mariners went on to win that game 8-4, although it was 8-1 until the bottom of the ninth. They'll have a chance to eliminate the Tigers on Wednesday afternoon. The Yankees were able to come back down 6-1 against the Blue Jays. Looked like the Blue Jays were going to blow them out again. End up coming back to win their game. Aaron Judge's game-tying 3-run missile off the fair pole. All right, had a discussion last night. Do you call it a foul pole all the time? But when they hit it and it's a home run, shouldn't it be called the fair pole? I don't know. Something to think about. Anyway, this swung the momentum back into the Yankees' favor for the rest of the game. New York ends up hanging on to get the win. They're going to hand the ball off to Cam Schlittler, another rookie, to keep their postseason hopes alive. He was able to do it in Game 3 against the Boston Red Sox. Ended up winning that one, and he was dominant. 8 innings, struck out 12. They're down 2-1 in the series against Toronto. A repeat performance is highly unlikely. 8 innings, 12 strikeouts is not normal, especially against that Toronto offense, but it should make some good television tonight. Former Cardinal Paul Goldschmidt, he's 4 for 8 in the playoffs so far, but all 4 of his hits have been singles. And remember, like, earlier in the year, Paul Goldschmidt got off to that really good start. And, I kind of quit paying attention because I was like, good for Goldie. The numbers at the end of the year were not good. He only had 10 home runs. Ben Rice ended up playing more first base in the second half. So, but 4 for 8 for Goldie in the playoffs so far. In the National League, the Brewers will try to finish off the Cubs at Wrigley in Game 3. Quinn Priester will start for Milwaukee against Jameson Taillon for Chicago. The Brewers at one point won 19 straight games when Priester started the game. So that was impressive. The Cubs are hoping the Wrigley faithful can help get their offense going after scoring just 6 runs in the first 2 games and getting shut out over the final 8 innings in Game 2. That Milwaukee team is flying right now. I'm sorry, Chicago. I don't think it's going to work out for you. Then the final game of the night's got the Dodgers looking to sweep the Phillies. Game's going to be in LA. Oh, and the Phillies are starting Aaron Nola, who had an ERA over 6 this year. That's the guy? Apparently the idea is they want to start Nola and then go to Ranger Suarez. But it's win or go home. And one of these guys has been pretty good this year. The other guy has not been very good. So I don't know why Phillies manager Rob Thompson is doing this and even toying with Aaron Nola in this situation. But honestly, it's not going to matter if your 3 best hitters in Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, and Bryce Harper don't get their bats going. They're a combined 2 for 21 in the series. Free agent to be Kyle Schwarber, who had the monster year, is 0 for 7 with 5 Ks in the series. It just has been a complete no-show so far. So, and good luck to the Phillies up against Dodgers starter Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who was one of the best right-handers in the National League this season. Former Cardinal Harrison Bader is on that Phillies squad. Unfortunately, he's been dealing with a growing issue. Is available for pinch hit duties if needed, but it's a bummer that he hasn't gotten to play, full-time. Tommy Edman has not had a strong playoff so far. Hitting just 182, but he's only taken 11 at bats. He's been banged up as well. But, a couple of former Cardinals in that game as well. I just personally think as far as the National League goes, I think a Dodgers-Brewers series would be a lot of fun to watch. Although, if I remember it right, didn't the Brewers sweep the Dodgers in Milwaukee this year? It wasn't even close. So I don't know, but I think that would be the most fun series. So both of them could be moving on after today's game. So thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. Obviously, you can like and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Would appreciate. You can help our channel and our love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans of baseball for a reason. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.